are quick and have been taken care of, but 2 of my students did not receive their iPads after 1 entire month of school. In my opinion, they still did not have all of the appropriate apps installed on them. The iPads I received were registered and logged in on a district account to which I don't have a password, and therefore I cannot modify or add apps without logging out and logging in on my own personal Apple ID, and then either purchasing my own apps or acquiring them from the cloud or utilizing only free apps. No training, instruction, or orientation has been given on how to use iPads to the district standards, what we are allowed to do with them, what we are not, what determines which apps are appropriate and allowed, etc., and this is of a concern to me. Recently, I was bitten by a student and filed a behavioral incident report and a workman's comp claim, and after this, the behavior specialist did not visit the school, although she was attached to that student's
30 seconds.
IEP, and no new plan was made, no suspension occurred, and no family consultation was provided. And I'm going to skip to something else that's very important to me. In my opinion, special education has not, for the last 10 years, provided clear explanation for the philosophy of service delivery. What is inclusion, according to the district? What is aid support? What is modified work? What remedial curriculums are we using? Is there a way for teachers to communicate with each other and share resources? Last year, the district contracted with Linda Mood Bell and spent a lot of money and training to enact an educational model of this program. Now there's no follow-up, no direction on obtaining additional resources and materials, and no real policy on whether this program is one we still support.
Thank you, Ms. Lauer.
And for whom we support.
And could you provide us the written comment, because it sounds like you had to skip over some.
I would be happy to give you a copy. I have copies for everyone.
Thank you.
One last thing, research shows that true remedial instruction requires 90 minutes minimum of small group or one-to-one instruction in data-based programs to achieve any measurable results. There is no school.
I have to interrupt. I think
the time
is up.
You don't want me to finish this.
We have to treat everybody the same.
All right, thank you very much. I will allow you to read this at your leisure, and feel free to contact me at any time. I am at Peabody Charter School. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so I believe this concludes public comment.
I would just like one comment. I'd like to thank Dr. Hope for all the background information you provided. That's a lot. No, it was a lot of work, and I just want to thank you for doing it.
And just as a reminder, since none of the public comment agenda items are actually agendized, we don't have the liberty to ask questions, to discuss. That's part of the Brown Act, so we have to agendize items. But thank you for bringing this to our attention, and I know that the district will do all appropriate follow-up and keep all of us in communication about any additional updates. So.
Yes.
We move on to item D, acceptance of donations.
I will move to accept with gratitude.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0. And now we're moving on to consent agenda. Board, are there any items on the consent agenda that you would like to pull?
I don't want to pull. I just have a comment on San Marcos High School's fundraising. There was an error on one of their line items. It had $451,000. It should have been $51,000.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big difference.
No matter how zealous they might be.
Yeah, I'm sure they're really excited about that now.
And I do want to pull item F6, that's the personnel list, for an abstention.
I will move to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0. Do we want to take the personnel?
Move to approve the recommended human resources actions.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, noted. That motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. All right, so this takes us to our action agenda item. And the first thing on our action agenda item is the approval of the agreement between the City of Santa Barbara and Santa Barbara Unified School District regarding the junior high after-school sports program. Dr. Cash?
Yes, you have 2 items, right, one after the other, and this has to do with their interest in helping us continue to provide an after-school sports program for students at our 4 junior high school campuses. One with the City of Santa Barbara and one with the City of Goleta. Prior to this, in the immediate, I'm going to think 3 to 4 years, those funds were given directly to the Santa Barbara Police Activities League. Since the Police Activities League is no longer involved in the junior high school sports program, both cities have decided that they want to continue to support that, and will be giving the money directly in support of that program.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Mr. Herron?
I just have a question. On H2 under conference, isn't that a discussion about should we be doing this?
No, it's just, we're telling you about the program that we're going to offer.
But it has several action items indicated in it, getting our approval of doing the program. And are we getting the money before we approve the actual program?
I don't believe we were asking for your approval of the program. I think we were just sharing with you the program that we were going to do, which is similar to, it's an expansion of the existing program.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Parker?
And I just have a question, because we may have public comment on this, but we do. I'm having a little difficulty, Dr. Evenstein, reading your handwriting. So we do have public comment if we want to go ahead and listen to that on this item. Lanny Evenstein.
Thank you. I didn't realize the meetings now start at 6:30, so I apologize for that. I want to say I'm a great advocate of the junior high school activities program in terms of when I was on the school board low in the last millennium. I served on the committee for 8 years, and there were a number of individuals on it. John Mendoza, former principal, Santa Barbara Junior High, Richard Johns, Rusty Fairley. And the goal was really to build the program up to encourage more activity. And when I looked at the agenda item, it seemed as though it was about a $93,000 a year program between, I think, $60,000 or so from the school districts, $20,000 from the City of Santa Barbara, and then $13,000 from Goleta, or something along those lines. That's 1/2 of one police officer in the City of Santa Barbara in terms of to involve many hundreds of kids on a daily basis. And the only thing and the reason why I came down tonight is just to say that I really feel like the City of Santa Barbara should be putting more money into this program. It's something that the way the program was set up and evolved in the 90s was that the city and the school district would each put in half. And if there's a little bit less, because Goleta is its own city now, Goleta Valley Junior High School, I think it's very good that the city of Goleta is putting some funds in. But for the city to be putting only $20,000 into this program is something that it just seems to me that is less than the city ought to do. And I've talked both with members of the board and members of the administration about the sort of general relationship between the City of Santa Barbara and the Santa Barbara School District. What city use is there of school facilities, what school use is of their city facilities, and then what are the funds between the two agencies. But it's something that, by all means, the program should continue and expand, but at the same time, it seems to me that the school district should, at the appropriate time, request more city funding for this and similar programs. So those are my only thoughts, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to address you on this agenda item. Okay.
Board, any comments?
I can assure you that we had significant conversations with both municipalities regarding their level of contribution. And it came to a point where we needed to move forward with the program, and we knew it was best for kids, and we were going to take what they were willing to give.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Ms. Parker?
I would just say that I am grateful. I mean, obviously, it could be nothing, and so I do appreciate that both of the cities are participating, even to the limited extent that they are, and I'm also really appreciative of the flexibility that both the cities are coming forward with, but that our district is, that we really started to think in more creative ways about doing, getting more students involved, and I know that we'll hear more about it as time goes by on this agenda, but I think that this is, that it's going to be a stronger, better program. And so I'm appreciative of that. I'm fully supportive of this agreement, although like Dr. Evenstein has said, I think it would be great to be talking about larger contributions in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Dr. Bass?
When we had our meeting with the joint meeting with the City of Santa Barbara, is actually one of the topics that I did raise in general, was the cooperation between the city and the school district, and how we can improve that, especially given limited resources on both sides. But at the same time, looking at all of the, as Dr. Evenstein noted, the use across the board of facilities, and I think that we need to have that as an ongoing discussion and really think about more creative ways to foster that relationship and look at opportunities, because I do strongly believe that, I'm in line with Dr. Evenstein in terms of the $20,000. This seems a little, and I understand our position that, but at the same time, there's great benefit to the City of Santa Barbara by having services at the school site, and we're always looking at the newspaper headlines and looking at youth and not having opportunities for youth. I think the city should, in many ways, step up to the plate and look with us in a true partnership to look at more opportunities for our youth in our city.
Thank you, Dr. Bass. All right. So this is an action agenda item. If there's no further comments, I welcome a motion.
I make the motion to approve the agreement between the City of Santa Barbara and Santa Barbara Unified School District regarding the junior high after-school sports program.
Thank you, Dr. Bass.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Idelson. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And next we have a very similar agreement coming to us from the City of Goleta.
Yes.
Board, any-
I'll move the approval of the agreement between the City of Goleta and Santa Barbara Unified School District regarding the junior high after-school sports program.
Thank you, Mr. Herron.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Idelson. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. We will move on to a series of board policies. And so just to review, these are coming to us for a second time after some feedback. So there may be a chance that we might not have a whole lot of feedback on some of these policies, but we'll take them one at a time. The first is the second reading and approval of Board Policy 5113.1, chronic absence and truancies. Board, any comments, feedbacks, or edits for this?
First of all, thank you all for putting these back on the action item. I did get a chance to watch your fantastic meeting from last week and was enthralled with listening to your discussion of these policies. And
I'm sure you were.
yes. And I really don't have a lot of comments, but I did have one question on this. I presume the language in here about our SARB, even though we don't have a district SARB, we have a county SARB, I presume our language is okay in this? It sort of talks about a district SARB and appointing members to it, but we really only appoint one member. So I didn't know if this language was just generic and covered what we currently do in reality versus what this generic language is. Just a comment. I presume it's okay.
Yes, it
Yes.
is. Absolutely.
Okay.
And our district SARB is the county SARB. just like Carpinteria's district SARB is the county SARB. So that's how that's all worked out.
I'll make another comment here that relates to something further. On page 2 of 3, this question came up in one of the other policies. It's in the first major paragraph, center of the page, and it says, "The superintendent or designee shall periodically report this information to the board for purposes of evaluating the effectiveness of strategies implemented to reduce chronic absence." And the question comes up, what does the word "report this information to the board," mean in terms of the education code? In one that comes up, it was somehow changed to, by email to the members. And I like this language better. I like it to be more generic, and information to the board to me especially when it's followed by evaluation terms, really means to me information to this board in this kind of environment rather than an email. So I'll bring that up in one of the others. But I like this language better. I'll move approval of BP 5113.1.
Thank you, Mr. Herron.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Idelson. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0. We will move on to second reading and approval of Board Policy 5117, interdistrict attendance.
I noticed that we did eliminate another section in that. I had a generic question. Section 2 now, regarding Harding University, how many parents do we, or how many teachers do we have in that program that have kids at Harding? Do we know?
0.
0.
Yes.
Okay. Because that was a major topic of discussion when we did all that. And so I guess I would, at some point in time, like to look at that paragraph to see if it's really necessary.
Okay.
I'll move approval of BP 5117.
Thank you, Mr. Herron.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Foss. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0. We will move on to second reading and approval of Administrative Regulation 5125, student records. Discussion.
Just a question. On page 2, towards the bottom, under contractor or consultant, the words volunteer or other parties was eliminated as a definition of school officials and employees, and then specifically mentioned that they are not included, which is according to the Education Code. But I'm just curious, did we ever have any volunteers or other parties working for us? Or do we have any volunteers or other parties working for us in cafeteria lines or any place collecting money that might give them access to personal records?
No, we do not.
We don't have any that we know of?
Not that we know of.
Okay.
That could happen, though. I mean, we have
Dr.
PT
Cash is looking at me.
Well, no.
I'm
I
looking
mean,
at
today
him.
I was at San Marcos High School
Yeah.
on a school visit, and there we had parents there collecting money for the homecoming dance. So
Yeah.
I'm sure they were looking at student IDs, and they were collecting money to pay for the tickets.
Well, my only concern is that it used to be right. It used to be, we could do it in our policy. Now we can't. My question is, does everybody know we can't do it any longer if, in fact, they were doing it before?
Well, they would know after it's been passed by the board, or when it's been passed
Okay.
by the board.
I'll move approval of AR 5125.
I'll second it. Oh, sorry.
All right, so I have Mr. Herron and Ms. Idelson. Any additional discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have second reading and approval of Administrative Regulation 5141.3, run immunizations.
2 questions on this one. On page 1, it says our schools can make their own disciplinary rules, and then the board may review them. I don't recall approving very many disciplinary rules, and evidently every 4 years or something, they're supposed to, I mean, do we
So this-
have schools that have their own disciplinary rules?
I think you're jumping ahead one.
Yeah, we're
Oh, which
looking
one?
at the immunizations.
Oh, sorry about that. I have no questions on that.
All right.
I'll move approval of 5141.31.
All right, thank you, Mr. Herron.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Buss. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0. Now we will move on to second reading and approval of Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 5144, discipline.
Yeah, my question, again, is do we have schools that have their own disciplinary policies?
Yes, they have their own rules, absolutely. Classrooms have their own rules as well.
And are we supposed to be reviewing any of those? According to this, it says we may review them, doesn't say we...
I wouldn't, that would be, I think, probably under the dictionary, micromanagement
Okay.
would probably be a prime example. Because we would want schools to develop rules that meet the needs of those school communities.
And they also, but need to be consistent with our policy.
Right, oh,
So
absolutely.
somebody checks that?
Yes.
So every rule that's out there meets our
Well,
policy?
I mean, every classroom rule, no, I don't think that we've done that. We haven't asked the principals to certify they've reviewed all the rules. I think if that's what the board is requesting that we do, we can certainly engage in that.
Just asking, yeah.
Ms. Parker?
I can say that I know that sometimes individual teachers don't know either the school policy on an issue or the district policy on an issue.
Sure.
And it comes up, I've seen it happen with cheating, for example, where an individual teacher will create his or her own rules when we actually have board policy around it. But when that happens, it comes out. I mean, obviously, I think that principals need to be reviewing this information, so especially as new teachers come on, that they're aware that there is policy, and sometimes, they don't even think, individual new teachers won't think to look at what the board policy is. But everybody recognizes that board policy trumps, and so when an issue arises, it falls back to that position. So I haven't seen a huge issue with it. It does occasionally happen, though.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Mr. Herron?
Page 2 is where this other topic comes up. Right dead center, at the beginning of every school year, the superintendent or designee shall report to the board, and you've added through weekly email. And that came up during discussions at the last meeting. Ms. Limon just nonchalantly said, well, how are you going to do that? And is it going to be board brief? Is it going to be at board meeting? It's going to be by mail? And Dr. Cass said, oh, by mail. I'd like to keep that out of there. There will be other superintendents, there will be other board members who really want that report to the board to be a more formalized report. And so I don't think the intent, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't hear it in the discussion that you really meant to change the wording to include through weekly email. I think that was a rhetorical question more than...
It was, you're correct, and yeah, my intent was not to change it. It was, it was listed on there, so I wanted to know. So I'm actually fine with keeping the language and having that come to us in a board meeting in a public session.
Well, it doesn't say that it has to be a board meeting public session, but by changing it to email, it eliminates the need to...
Possibility for it
And
to
so
come.
in that...
That's fine.
Whatever that's above corporal punishment, where is that up there on the screen? Page 2 of 3. No, I think you're way past it, I think. Are we looking at the same one?
5144?
51, board policy,
The AR, not the
Yeah,
board
it's
policy.
the
BP.
Page 2. Right there.
It's in green, right at the bottom, right there, through weekly email, were the 3 words that were added. I'd like to see those deleted and keep it as it was written. And then there is discretion then by the superintendent. But we may have another superintendent someday who doesn't want to even do weekly email.
There may not be email.
Yeah, it may not be email, yeah. So I don't think, I guess I don't think the intent was to
One
put it
can
in
only
there.
wish or hope.
Yeah, I don't think the intent was to put it in there. So I would move approval of BP 5144 without those 3 words through weekly email.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Herron and Ms. Idelson. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes 5-0. Next, we move on to second reading and approval of Board Policy 5141.33.
Can I just ask, did we just approve the BP and the AR on 5144? Or did you have any questions on 5? Did we? I wasn't sure if you just did both.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for noting that. Yes.
No, I'm okay with,
So we just approved the BP and AR together.
yes, that was my motion.
Okay. All right, so we will move on to second reading and approval of Board Policy 5141.33. Head lice.
Oh, yeah, this was an interesting discussion. You changed the word may, or may to shall. And I just had a question. It says, in consultation with the school nurse, the principal shall also send information about head lice home. But then it goes on to say in the next sentence, staff shall maintain the privacy of students identified. What are you asking the teachers to send home? Is it the same information that the superintendent sent at the start of the school year? Related
No,
information?
it's a letter that goes home, I've received them, to parents that say a child in your child's class has head lice. Here, and it's like, here are the things you should do and look for, and
So it's not just pure information, it's specific information.
yes,
Yeah.
it's specific. There's an event occurring in your child's classroom, and here's some information to help guide you in what you might be doing with your own child.
And caution and inspection, right?
Right, yep.
And so if it happened twice in 1 week, they'd send home 2 notices?
I would, you've got 3 elementary principals who probably do it all the time. They could tell you.
I mean, the word was may, and we're being asked to change it to shall. And so that means every time there's head lice in 2 or more people, information has to go out.
But I want to be clear that it was may on the CSBA recommended updates. It has been shall in the district in the past. And
Okay.
and when it happens, we get a letter home. And you know, once 2 kids in the same class have been identified, you get the letter. When the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th kid gets identified, you don't get the letter again. But
Generally, it happens in,
Well,
can you?
yeah.
Go to the mic.
I can talk very professionally about lice now. Generally, it happens in succession. So once a student is identified with lice, the process is generally the school nurse will, call in the whole class in groups, and then once the whole class is sent back, notify parents privately about if they detected lice. And you generally see more than one. We actually usually then check siblings if somebody has a positive identification, and then go through that class. It's a long process. But as Ms. Parker said, that you send home the notice for the first one, or we send it on the first one, we don't wait for 2. And then that you usually see the few cases that week in that class, and then it moves to a new class.
Well, this new policy is quite different than the old policy.
it's less restrictive.
So I would hope that the staff will get copies of the new policy to understand that it has changed.
Believe me, they will be on board for any reduction in lice outbreaks and any ways to mitigate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll move approval of BP 5141.33.
Thank you, Mr. Herron.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Idelson. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0. Next, we have second reading and approval of Board Policy 5145.6, parental notifications.
I have no more questions.
All right, so I will take a motion.
Move to approve?
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? So that was Ms. Parker making the motion, and Dr. Boss seconding the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0. Next, we have second reading and approval of Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 5144.1, suspensions and expulsion due process.
I'll move approval of 5144.1.
Thank you, Mr. Herron.
I'll second it.
Thank
And
you.
And just a clarification, that's for the BP and the AR?
That's for the BP and the AR. And we have the motion made by Mr. Herron and seconded by Ms. Seidelson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We will go on to second reading and approval of Administrative Regulation 6173.1, Education for Foster Youth.
Move approval of AR 6173.1.
Thank you, Mr. Herron.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Idelson. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We are now in our final action agenda item, which is the Board Action on Student Discipline, case number 2013/14-01.
In case 2013/14-01, I move to approve the administrative hearing panel recommendation for a one school year expulsion.
Thank you, Ms. Parker.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Idelson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We will go on to our conference agenda item, and we have discussion of Santa Barbara Charter School petition for renewal. Mr.
Well, I'm going to start, and then
Dr.
Mr. Handel can answer all the questions. Pursuant to Board Policy 0420.42, the Santa Barbara Charter School has submitted the renewal petition and proposed memorandum of understanding and proposed facilities use agreement to the Santa Barbara Board of Education. The Santa Barbara Charter School understands that their petition for renewal shall meet the requirements of our Board Policy 0420.42, which includes all the relevant education code requirements for charter renewal. Attached and part of this agenda item is the renewal petition, proposed memorandum of understanding, and the proposed facilities use agreement. Your receipt of these documents this evening is the official notice of the renewal that's being taken by the Board of Education. As a result, within 30 days, the board shall hold a public hearing to review additional documentation submitted by the charter and obtain public input. We're proposing that the public hearing take place at the next board meeting, October 8, 2013. We will prepare a report to the board regarding their renewal petition that will include either a recommendation for renewal or non-renewal at the October 22nd, 2013 board meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Mr. Handel, do you want to say anything else, or do you want us to start with comments or questions?
I think Dr. Cash covered it pretty well.
All right. So, board, comments or questions? This was quite the big item, a lot of reading. Ms. Parker?
Yes, it's a lot of information to go through, and I'm sure that Santa Barbara Charter representatives will be at the next meeting.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And just in taking an initial look at it, I really feel that renewing a charter is one of the most important things that we do as a district, because it's not a school that we have day-to-day control over. When we see issues, we don't have the ability to influence it on a daily or monthly or even yearly basis. So once we renew, it is really leaving things in the hands of a group that we have to trust. And I know a lot of families that attend Santa Barbara Charter. It's a school with a long history, and it's a school that a lot of families really love, and I understand that. But in many ways, I feel like I am at where I was when I first was reviewing a petition when Cesar Chavez came to us 5 years ago. And that is really knowing that the community loves the school and that it has a history, but seeing that the school's results are dramatically lower than than not only other schools in our district, but when you, I understand that they're a progressive school and they're going to say, well, you know, we shouldn't just be looking at test scores, but they are so dramatically lower than most progressive schools in the state of California when you compare like students. So that's a real red flag to me, because when I look through at the points of what they say that they're going to be doing, like making sure that students are grade level proficient and that they are progressing 1 year every year that they're in school, they have a lot of students that aren't. And so that's a red flag for me. When I look through other issues that I see, well, the questions that I have that I don't know if we've started to look at yet. We also have a school in our district that's a progressive school that's not charter, and that's OAS, Open Alternative School, and it is similar. We have two really low-performing progressive schools. And I know that that's something that our administration, district administration, is paying really close attention to, making leadership changes, trying to bring different curriculum in, paying attention to it in a way that we can because it's a district school. Something that I've heard from our own principals is that sometimes struggling students that leave, for example, Open Alternative, they'll come in at a lower grade level for reading, in particular, like in 3rd or 4th grade, far behind their peers if they end up at a traditional school. I don't know if we've looked at that data for Santa Barbara Charter. How a lot of their students are from Goleta Union. Have we looked to see if students go back to Goleta Union, how are they performing compared to their peers at the traditional schools? Can we get that data from Goleta Union? For the students that go on and join us in Santa Barbara Unified Middle Schools, junior high schools, where are they in comparison to peers? Do they eventually catch up? One thing I noticed is that they use, their reading curriculum is whole language, which is pretty much not used anymore by itself. I mean, I know that there's the pendulum swing to the other direction where it was all phonetics for a while, all phonics, but I think that a lot of schools have ended up a little bit more middle of the road. So when I saw that their curriculum is just whole language, that was another red flag for me, and I'd like to know more details about what specific texts are they using, what curriculum are they using. Both in that and in any of their subject areas, because they don't specify that it's in any of their curriculum is standards aligned. A lot of the awards that they list in their section of evidence that they're making progress and that they're meeting their objectives and they're accomplishing their mission, they're from pre-2008, and I would have really liked just to see what are we doing. What have they been doing in the past 5 years since we're focusing on the renewal? So that's another thing that I was concerned about. Does the district, have you been in to review student portfolios, since that is an important part of the way they assess that students are making progress? And I don't know if you've been able to get in yet to take a look, or to have district teachers take a look to see how do those portfolios compare to students in regular schools. They do an annual parent satisfaction survey, and I think it would be good for the board to look at maybe the past 2 or 3 years of the parent satisfaction survey. One other thing that I noticed is when they were talking about a 21st century learner, there's no mention of the Common Core, and I think that I would expect every kind of school, even alternative schools, since at least this early part of the 21st century, a lot of what it's going to mean to be a 21st century learner is to be able to understand or to be interacting with the Common Core and what expectations are going to be at the junior high school, and college level. So I'd expect to see that kind of a discussion in any charter petition that came forward. How does their mission interact with the Common Core? And then finally, and these were just things that I was looking at quickly, because I'm sure that as I go back and have more time to look at things in depth, that more things will come up. But our other charters have specified that they will follow the Brown Act, and this one is coming forward saying that it will follow the spirit of the Brown Act. And so I want to be really careful about that, because I think it's important for the charters, regardless of ed code and what court interpretations may not be there, that our own charters are in compliance with the Brown Act. So those are just some of the things that I'm thinking about, and I don't know if you can respond to any of those, or if maybe others just want to share what they're thinking about too.
And so I just want to make sure, because it sounds like we all may have a variety of questions, that these are questions that will get shared with their circle of trustees, who I'm guessing will be here as far as getting information.
We'll be sharing them with the charter administration.
Okay.
So I think I captured Ms. Parker's comments.
All right, thank you. Dr. Buss.
I had a recent discussion with a parent who had their child at Santa Barbara Charter School beginning of this school year, and then pulled their child out. And it was because of the environment and actually some of the concerns you have raised. And so it made me think, we have the parent survey results for those parents who are there.
Right.
But what about the parents who left, or any parents who left? And I wonder what their experience was, and so do we have a sense? Can we get and is there any way possible that we can get that kind of information from parents, or if anyone's ever shared anything in terms of their concern? That would be interesting for me as a board member to kind of look at, because people who are there generally want to be there, and people who have left, obviously they don't want to be there, and they have their own reasons for not wanting to be there. So that would be one area for me to want to know more about. The concern that was shared about the curriculum was also another area that I also would like to have more information. Why? What is the philosophy of having their curriculum that is solely based on whole language? And I would want to know a little more about that, and what is sort of the intent of doing that, and the logic behind it. And I also looked at and shared the same concerns about looking at the awards that they occurred at 5-6 years ago at a certain point in time. And the Brown Act really stood out to me really quickly. I'm puzzled at why you would not want to comply with that. So those are my quick comments.
Thank you, Dr. Buss. Mr. Herron?
I guess my concern is process. You're going to bring back to us a recommendation, but also, I presume, a lot of facts and figures as to what that is based upon. And so you're going to bring back not just an analysis of these words, but an analysis of what they're doing, how they're doing it, and what grounds we have for approving or not approving.
Well, the approval process is dictated entirely by Ed Code.
Right.
And it's very, very specific. And so it is, do they do this or don't they do this? So it's not a lot of interpretation.
Well, but you'll be giving us those benchmarks.
It may not be at the level of detail that that you're asking, because that's not required by Ed Code. But we certainly will give you a narrative, and we will comment on all of the Ed Code provisions that, and it's my understanding in talking to our attorney that it's a pretty straightforward process. Our analysis is, did they meet it, did they not?
Did they meet
the Ed Code, whatever the specific provision of the Ed Code. I've sent the template, and it'll be the same sort of analysis that we did in the Peabody Charter renewal.
Okay.
And if I recall correctly, there are 16 to 19, right, elements that are yes.
16.
16.
16,
Okay,
yes.
so they listed 19 in here. I noted that. They have 19 on here. So there are 16 that are yes or no. And I think those have been shared with us. And so there's 16 elements. Several items are included there, and my guess is that they're not always the same exact answer, and so that's where the interpretation of the board comes into place.
That's correct.
Yes.
Are there any representatives of the school here in the audience?
No. I don't see any.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't see Dave or Bev.
And that really surprises me. Yeah. Did they know we had this on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
So should they not meet something, then are they allowed to go back and represent it? Or of those 16 items, it's either yes or no? If they're not up to accountability for that, they're denied? Or that's decided by us?
That's decided by you.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, all right. So I have several questions, and I know how much work goes into this, having been a former charter school board member and knowing the renewal process in an intimate way. My questions have actually to do with enrollment information. There are a lot of different types of programs within the charter school, including home-based students and independent study, and I would like to see 5-year data for how many students are taking classes on the campus, how many are doing a home-based program, and how many are doing independent study. One of the 16 criteria that we look at as a board member is the reflection, the student makeup.
Racial and ethnic. Yeah.
Balance related to the district itself.
Correct.
And so I also have questions about how many of the students there are ELL, are special ed, and overall makeup, again, in the last 5 years would be important for me to consider. I have truthfully, I have a list of questions, so I don't know that I'm going to go through each one of them, but I have questions about whether they've ever had a need for a lottery. I know that a lottery is discussed because they need to, but I'm curious if there's ever been a need for a lottery. And also, I did note that their renewal is a 4-year or 5-year?
5 years.
Right, and so I would be interested in the district's feedback on 5 years. I know that with Adelante Charter School, it was not a 5-year renewal process, and so I want to make sure that we treat all of our charter schools the same, and that there is rationale behind the recommendation that's being made, whether it's to approve or not approve, and the length of time. So I'm hoping that they will be here. I think that actually that's important to have board members here when this process is going through. I understand that it's a lot of work, but my hope is that they will be here and that we'll get the additional questions, I think, that have been shared, more information about the parent survey results, as well as the sense that I am getting from the few comments that have been made have basically been that the Brown Act is not really a negotiable piece.
That's correct.
And so that is probably something that needs to be taken back to them. So those are my general comments. I think Ms. Parker has some more comments.
And I just wanted to tag on with what you were saying about the enrollment, because it has a long history of not reflecting the demographics of either Goleta Union, where it's physically located, or Santa Barbara Unified, who charters it. And that is another thing that I think it's a huge issue, because I don't see any attempt to recognize that. I mean, it is one of the mandates of Ed Code to recognize that that's one of the mandates of the Ed Code, and that they haven't been meeting it, and how they're going to address that. And so that's something else that's a concern to me.
Mr. Herron.
A couple comments. I've heard the parent survey mentioned, and we did get a audit of their program back in January, and they indicated that 10% of their families responded to the survey. So 10% of 240 some is 24 families. So I don't think you can expect to get too much information from that type of a survey. But just words of caution. I would caution us not to compare the Adelante situation to this situation. We fought like heck to get a 3-year, 4-year, and there were a lot of reasons for that. And so I don't think this one should be looked at in comparison to that necessarily. I had one other thing, but it slipped my mind.
And I think my comments were more about just as these come, the process should be equitable, and there should be really strong evidence and rationale for our recommendations. Yes, Dr. Buss.
One of the things that I did not see, perhaps, and maybe it's in here, but didn't stand out, was more information about how they work with their students who would fall in the category of needing more challenge, and how they work with those kids. And that was not necessarily in here, and so more information in that regard would be great.
Anything else?
So I want to, the reminder that they are not here because this is not the public hearing.
Right, but
So I told them they did not need to be here, because this is just your official notice that starts the timeline. And so, I mean, the way the board policy is written indicates that once the board takes official notice, then the timeline starts.
I would suggest they watch the DVD to hear these comments firsthand.
Right. Well, and I think it's more out of custom, actually. It's been, we are probably used to having board members from charter schools here at the notice.
That's my other comment. Dr. Cash, in response to a question, you said you would notify the administration.
Yes.
That's what got us in trouble with Adelante. We notified the principal at that time, but their board never even knew about it. So I would hope that whatever you report to administration somehow gets into the hands of their board circle of
trustees.
whatever it is, because that was a huge problem with Adelante.
Okay. Was unaware of that.
It looks like in the MOU, under legal relationship number 3, that the charter school will comply with all state and federal laws with the Brown Act. So that's all written here, that they're required.
All right, any additional comments or questions? All right, so this will be back to us for a public hearing on October the 8th.
Yes,
All
it
right.
will.
Great, thank you. All right, we're moving on to a discussion of junior high sports programs. Dr. Dradi?
At this time, I'd like to invite Principal Lito Garcia, who spearheaded a discussion and facilitated discussions to help develop the program.
All right, well, thank you. I'm really excited to be able to talk to you tonight about our junior high sports program, being able to bring it back under the fold of our school district. And we've just we've put together a PowerPoint slide to run through some of the highlights of the program. And afterwards, or during the process, if you have any questions, please let me know. If we could go to the second slide. So the purpose of our program is to provide an experience for students that is going to be safe, it's going to be structured, it's getting kids active, so they're going to be out there doing some healthy activities. It's sports. I find sports exciting all the time, but we're going to provide an opportunity for the kids to have a really good time. It's a positive environment. One of the things that I've always enjoyed about junior high sports leagues is that you have a variety of students out there, from kids who have never played before or have never played in an organized fashion to students who are competing at a very high level. And they're all out there on the same team, competing together, which builds that character, those leadership skills, and develops responsibility. So all of these things can happen out on the soccer field, the basketball court. We're going to be offering volleyball as well. We're going to be offering flag football. So these are going to give our kids a variety of very positive experiences. We've developed an organizational chart to help oversee the whole process. I don't know how that guy at the top is going to do, but everybody else is going to do just fine. And in fact, we've already started. Scott Brennan is a PE teacher at Santa Barbara Junior High. He is acting as our district coordinator. He has already begun the process of developing the game schedule. He's in the process of lining up bus transportation, getting referees lined up. And we have site coordinators, in particular Chris Hughes at Goleta Valley and John Sprague at La Colina, who have previously been involved with our after-school sports program. So they're bringing some good history to that, and they're communicating with myself and Scott to ensure that we have everything in place for when we roll out the program in November, which takes us to our next slide. So I briefly had mentioned some of the sports that we're going to be offering. We've actually already begun cross-country. That started last week on our minimum day at Santa Barbara Junior High and other days for the schools. And we had about 12 kids come out for that at Santa Barbara Junior High. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we're looking to start in November and wrap up in April, having 3 seasons. Also in the spring, we're going to be working with the community. There are a variety of track events that we will be promoting to our students, and they can attend and participate in whatever event that they are interested in, or all of them if they want. Now the money. And Dr. Dry, I don't know if you want to say anything specific to this slide.
Well, appreciate you approving the MOUs between Goleta, City of Goleta, Santa Barbara, and I think we also heard public comment about our wish to have larger funds provided by those cities. So we will continue to pursue that. But this is basically the breakdown of what City of Goleta has committed, 13,000. City of Santa Barbara committed 20,000, and we make up the rest for 52,000.
I have a question about this. What does 52,000, I'm sorry, well, I guess it's more than 52,000. It's 80-something, 85, get the district? How many students are going to be served?
We'll be able to serve 2 teams per sport.
2 teams per sport?
And then per school.
All right, and these are co-ed?
So, so this, our first November season, we will have girls soccer and boys basketball. And so we'll be able to have 2 girls soccer teams and 2 boys basketball teams.
And cross country. And do we know the number of students we anticipate that will participate, if you had to estimate?
So in girls soccer, we're looking at per team 15 to 20 students per team.
Okay. All right.
Basketball, boys, you're looking at 10 to 12 students per team.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Oh, Ms. Parker.
Following up on that, do you think that you will have students that would have wanted to do it, but there won't be space on the team? Or is that something that you maybe anticipate happening in future years once the program gets redeveloped?
I'm not going to turn away anybody. We're going to make it work, whatever numbers show up. And in future years, with more funding, then I definitely would like to be able to have more teams with more coaches. But if we have to put together a large team, we'll make it happen. Because that's going to discourage kids. If we turn them away, then we'll never build a program. So we have to accommodate them.
Question.
I'm sorry.
Will there be transportation between, will it be intramural between campuses?
Yes, there will.
How will that be done?
That'll be using Santa Barbara transportation, so the yellow buses, and we'll be going from school to school. So, Santa Barbara Junior High competing against La Cumbre, we'll drive out to La Cumbre. We'll take, in the first season, girls soccer, boys basketball, we'll take both teams out. So there'll be a soccer game and a basketball game happening at the same time.
Okay.
Which is great to see all the activity at once.
The district's interest is to expand the program. So the more students we have out there, the more we feel that it'll grow. So volleyball, we notice, I know the junior highs, because of the competition out there for volleyball with independent programs, that's a challenge for us, but a part of our plan is to help instruct students how to play volleyball, so that way they gain interest. So we plan to expand the program.
And 2 other questions. As far as the timing, will this be 5 days a week?
Monday through Thursday.
And what about the 7-period PE for some of the schools? Will that conflict with this?
Those kids will get out in time that they can still participate.
Okay.
They'll miss part of the practice, but they'll get out in time for the games.
So typically, what would be a ending time?
Around 4:30, 4 to 4:30.
Mr. Herron?
How does this cost compare to previous programs with PAL?
We gave PAL $40,000 a year. The additional $12,000 you approved when you ratified the agreement with SBTA for the coaching stipends.
Any additional questions or comments, board? All right, well, we look forward to hearing more about it once the year is over. How many students participated?
And we'd love to see you all out there cheering on the Condors. Thank you.
Thank you, Lito.
All right, next we have a presentation, Parcel Tax Measures A 2012 and B 2012 Citizens Oversight Committee's appointments and resignations. Ms. Kiani.
Good evening, Board. Some information has changed since you received your original the original information that I provided last week, which is very exciting because all of a sudden there's a lot of people that wanted to serve on our committee. So we have 12 new openings, 4 renewals, and 3 removals for a total of 28 spots on the 2 committees. So we have some people that are still serving, and then we have those 12 openings, 4 renewals, and 3 removals to account for tonight. So we have a chart that I'm hoping, because it's kind of crazy to try and make this all work, and I'm hoping this will help you visualize it the way it's helping me. The yellow highlighted areas are seats that are open and that we need to fill. The most recent list of candidates, the candidate list has been updated on your right, and the check marks reflect any affiliations that they may have. So right now, my suggestion would be, for example, if we want to start at Measure A, would be to take, know that we need to remove one person who is Karen Kearns. She has resigned. And then we need to fill the 4 other positions that are open. Okay. So, with that, we made some suggestions in the memo based on the information we had at that time. So since then, as I say, just on Measure A, 2 other candidates came forward. We also indicated that if they perhaps weren't selected to serve in one of those open positions, that they have indicated, oh, well, I'll move to Measure Q if that will work for you. So they've given us the latitude to put them in other spots if need be. So I'm not sure if you'd like to begin by looking at some of the recommendations that we made, particularly as it relates to removals first, and then look towards filling.
I think that would be fine. We can look at the resignations or...
Okay. So the first one is on Measure A. Karen Keynes has resigned from the Measure A committee, and if the board so chooses, we can remove her from that committee then.
Yeah, do you need to have a motion? Can we just do one how many people have resigned from Measure A?
Just one.
Just one, okay, because I just want to be sure that we do this in groups whenever we can.
Yeah, and I'll tell you before we, with each group.
I'll move to accept her resignation from the Measure A committee.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0.
5-0. Okay. At the time that we did this, Maya Upton, who indicated that she she's a parent PTA member, she's a community member, and she's a parent, would be available to serve in any one of the positions that you determined. Let's see, actually for her, just a moment. Keeping the scorecard has been quite interesting.
Can we have the yellow chart back? Thanks.
Okay. In the case, let's see, we're on Measure A, excuse me, I've got to switch charts here. Maya Upton has, applied to serve as the parent PTA representative on the Measure A committee, but she does have, as I say, other characteristics as well. She's part of other constituencies as well.
Ms. Parker.
And then we have also John Reed, who has since applied, and Patricia Blatt.
Ms. Parker.
So you have 4 openings, but only 2 that meet what you need. two openings have applicants for what you need. One is for the parent PTA with Maya
Correct.
Upton, and then John Reed or Patricia Black can fill in the community spot?
Correct. Now, do you remember in the bylaws that we can place a person, for example, we have a senior seat available, and we have been looking for seniors who would qualify. We were not able to get any applications that met that, and the bylaws indicate that we can place someone in that position, and then the next time that seat comes up, we would again go back to the senior community if that's indeed the seat that needs to be filled, whatever the designation is.
Then can I go ahead and make a motion for all three openings, since we have three candidates for Measure A, and move to appoint Maya Upton as the parent PTA rep,
Okay.
John Reed as the community rep, and Patricia Blatt as the senior rep for Measure A.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Herron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to Measure B. Roberta Weighill has applied to serve on the Measure B committee as the parent representative. The parent representative member of this committee is already filled. However, the tax preparer position has no applicants. Since she has and also, then the Ed Foundation has informed us that Lynn Rodriguez will represent the Ed Foundation on the committee. And just so you know, she previously served on the Measure I committee, and we submitted the same application for her.
I will move to appoint Lynn Rodriguez as the Santa Barbara Education Foundation representative, and Roberta Weighill as the tax preparer representative on Measure B.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Herron. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to Measure Q, which is one of the Secondary Bond Oversight Committee. And we have a few things going on there. We need to remove Edward Rollins and remove Linda Meyer from those committees. And then additionally, Teresa Cheney, who has served as in the tax preparer seat, and she is a tax preparer, would like to continue serving in that position on that committee. But we still then have some additional openings.
Okay.
I'll move to accept the two resignations and continue the appointment of the tax preparer.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Herron and Ms. Parker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0. That was Measure Q.
And that leaves us with 4 seats that still need to be filled: the parent PTA seat, the business seat, the senior seat, and the remaining term for a parent on that Measure Q board.
I'll move to appoint Cindy Young as the parent PTA rep on Measure Q, and Eric Peterson as the parent rep.
Okay. And Eric, just so you know, Eric Peterson is currently serving on the Measure R committee, and he's his term is over, and he wanted to shift to Q, so that's exactly what he was hoping for.
Okay.
Okay, so we have Cindy Young as the parent PTA rep, and Eric Peterson as the parent representative. And we
But
still,
is the parent representative just a one-year term?
no, it's 2. Everything is now 2.
The two, okay.
When we started, we had staggered terms,
Okay.
but now we've cut, we're beyond that. Okay, so we have a business seat. We don't have a candidate that quite meets that, so we'll need to put one of the candidates into that seat, and then we also have a senior seat open.
All right.
You need a vote.
I don't have a second. I think I'm,
Oh,
right? So, okay.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I was like,
I'm sorry, what was the selection?
this was for the second part of Measure Q, the appointments
Cindy Young
to
as the
Cindy,
parent,
yes,
and
Cindy Young.
Eric Peterson as the parent PTA.
Okay,
No,
So-
other way around, actually. Cindy Young is the parent PTA,
PTA.
and Eric Peterson is the parent.
Okay.
Okay, so my motion was made, or the motion was made by Ms. Parker and was seconded by Idelson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0.
Okay, and we still have 2 seats on the committee. We have the business seat and the senior seat that are open.
We have no candidate.
We don't have any that exactly meet those specifications, but we can use, any other candidate can sit in that chair until the next election.
But we don't have any, I mean, what we're looking at is we've already appointed John Reed and Patricia Blatt, so that's why we're not. But if you have any other candidates come forward, we'd be happy to.
Okay, and I'll leave those open and get back to you on that.
Okay.
Okay, so, all right. Now, the final one is the Measure R Committee, and we have 2 vacancies, the Santa Barbara Ed Foundation and the Parent PTA, but also we have some renewals for that committee. Joe Bailey, who has served in the, let's see, we need to renew Joe Bailey. Oh, he was in the, I want to say the business seat. I just need to double check on that one, just a moment. Yeah, the business representative. And Ann Fitzgerald, who was sitting in the senior seat, is also up for renewal. And Carola Nicholson was in the tax preparer seat, which is up for renewal. And those are just the renewals, and we have a removal as well, and I don't know if you want to take that at the same time.
I'll do that at the same time. Who's the removal?
Brian Robinson, he's a consultant for the district now, so he's not eligible to serve per the bylaws.
I'll move to accept Brian Robinson's resignation and renew the 3. It was Joe Bailey, Ann Fitzgerald,
and Carola Nicholson.
Mm-hmm.
Can you scroll up a little bit?
There's not much more to see. They're not there, but
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Parker and Ms. Idelson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0.
Okay, that leaves 2 seats open, and that's the parent PTA piece, and also the Santa Barbara Education. Unfortunately, they weren't able to find someone who would be available to serve.
I will move to appoint Gregory Levin as the parent PTA rep on Measure R.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Parker and Ms. Idelson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 5-0.
Okay, which leaves then the Santa Barbara Ed Foundation seat.
Yeah. And we don't have a candidate up there that hasn't already taken a spot, so.
And Roberta Weigel, I'm trying to see if she would serve again. I can come back to you on that.
Yeah, because she's, we put her on Measure
Yes.
B, right? So I don't know if she wants to do 2 committees.
Yeah, some people specified they would be okay with it, but I think I'd rather come back to you at the next meeting with that.
Okay.
Okay?
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. It's a very difficult task.
Yes. All right, next we have our final conference agenda item, which is the discussion of the one-to-one pilot and educational initiative. Dr. Cash?
Thank you very much. I have a lot smarter people that have waited patiently for the last hour and a half that are going to help me go through this process. And I'd ask Conrad to put up the PowerPoint presentation. As the board is aware, in the approved strategic plan, the board has already approved our move toward one-to-one at our schools over a period of time. And so we began that process of investigation as to what that would look like probably about 7 or 8 months ago, and are prepared at this particular point to bring forward where we're at. And we're interested in continuing that process and moving forward, and we'll share with you what steps we'd like to continue to take. So I think the first thing, if we go to the next slide, is why would we want to do a one-to-one program? We think that it fundamentally alters the learning environment, which is essential, right in line with the Common Core, allows us to focus on the learning goals of the students as opposed to be focused entirely upon the instructional program. I think one of the most significant benefits is customization. for students, which we're not currently able to provide to all students throughout the district at all times. And I think that's going to give our students a tremendous advantage, those students who are currently above grade level, who have the opportunity to really enrich and expand their learning, and those students who are below grade level and are going to continue to need alternative ways in which to learn and understand the content standards. The other reason why is content is ubiquitous, and I think we need to take advantage of that. It's everywhere, and learning is continuous. It's not just a process that occurs in the classroom. And a one-to-one device where students and teachers can be communicating on a regular basis outside of the classroom enables us to continue to have students learn. I also think the phrase, which is one I like to use, educational leapfrogging, is possible. I think it gives our students in poverty a much greater opportunity to be successful. They don't have to wait or continue to wait for things to happen for them that their families' experiences may not be able to afford, because instead we'll be giving them the world that awaits them as a result of having access to the internet. I mean, there's just a tremendous amount of resources. I mean, the earth truly is not flat, and I think the sooner we recognize that, the better it is. The next slide indicates that we have a digital learning transition that's occurring. This is a fundamentally educational initiative. It's not about technology. It's about the way students learn. I think it changes the culture of teaching. As I said, it makes it a much more student-centered focus. I think it also allows us to identify, implement, and sustain some really high-level professional learning for staff. And the one thing that we've learned over many years is the key component to digital learning initiatives or Transition Anywhere is leadership. So here's a little bit of our history, a little reminder. We began using computers as teacher tools in the early 1990s. We had computer labs, some as early as the late 80s. We had mini labs in many classrooms by the late 1990s, a laptop program at some schools in the early 2000s, and then the tablet really emerged in 2010 and really took off. And we had student use at some of our schools in 2010-11, and we've continued to have a lot of tablet use in our schools, in our elementary schools, junior high, and high school. The reason why I say this is an educational initiative is three main points. One, technology is no longer a tool. It's not simply a fancy pen or an expensive blackboard. Technology is also not about augmenting what we do. So I don't believe technology simply allows us to do things faster, do things quicker. I think a technology learning environment allows our students and our teachers to do things that would otherwise be inconceivable without that technology. We've just seen example after example in our classrooms throughout our district over the last year and a half to 2 years, and I know it existed prior to my arrival. My own personal experience, I've seen incredible things. A lot at the schools that our principals are here today. So our one-to-one pilot, our process was pretty straightforward. During this past school year, I received several requests from school sites and also from PTAs when I met with PTAs. Can we do a one-to-one program? When can we start it? If we buy all the tablets, can we start it next week? So it became very clear that there was an emerging critical mass in our community to look at doing this system-wide. So I held voluntary meetings with our site leaders first, and we went through, I think, a pretty nice little exercise. Todd Rickman led that effort, where we talked about what were some of the things that would be important in looking at what kind of capacity would a school site need to have in order to be successful in implementing a one-to-one program. And then all of those schools that were still interested, we held voluntary staff meetings at those school sites. There were 11 schools that after I met with the principals that were interested, I told the principals, go back to your schools, have a very candid conversation with your school community about, you know, these are the things that we'll be looking at doing. Do they really think that they're ready to go? Because we don't want, this is not anything we want to force somebody to do or require somebody to do, because it's going to be a significant change in how they do business. So we wanted we wanted the school community to feel, yes, we're ready, we don't think we can answer every question, but we're ready to go. So then we went back to those staff meetings and asked the same questions of every staff, and then answered their questions and listened to them talk about the answers to their questions and about their thoughts in relationship to one-to-one. The template that we used was really based on 4 key components: leadership, infrastructure, the teacher component, and how the community would respond or be supportive or not supportive of a one-to-one initiative. So what we ended up with at the end of the day was 4 schools: Adams School, Franklin, Washington, and La Cuesta. And also part of the conversation has been Dos Pueblos High School and San Marcos High School principals. They have attended our meetings and they've contributed to our conversation. They've asked a lot of questions and provided some good insight as to some of the issues that we'll face. We met over the summer and we discussed a lot of ideas, and so we're ready to move forward. And here are the key factors that we looked at. First was the leadership and stakeholder buy-in. We wanted to analyze our network. We, of course, needed to address the budget issue. Very important to us was how we would manage the devices, any changes that we would need to make, how we would secure them, how our acceptable use policies would need to change as a result of that, and then its relationship to Common Core implementation, which in every conversation that we've had, it's very, very clear that a technology learning environment is going to be a key part of our implementation of the Common Core. And even more, what's becoming even more clear on almost an hourly basis is how essential a student's ability to use technology, learn with technology is going to be to their success in the Smarter Balanced assessments that we're going to have. Very, very clear. So the 4 principles that we selected them on the following criteria. Number 1, these are capacity builders, and that's extraordinarily important because if the initiative is left to just, they happen to be, of course, 4 women, these 4 women to do, they don't have enough hours in the day or days in the week to do it all themselves. So they have, through their leadership, demonstrated that they can build capacity in others to deliver on the initiative in the classrooms. And they are finishers. I mean, I remember former superintendent in Santa Barbara, Mike Caston, used to say one of the most important characteristics he looked for in leaders was their ability to finish. And I characterize that as the ability to deliver, to get things done. And these 4 women have demonstrated that over and over and over again in just about everything they do. Also important is obviously supporting and sustaining the initiative, providing the support necessary not just for staff but for students and parents as well, and the ability to communicate and problem solve. They're all great communicators and problem solvers. So we look at stakeholder buy-in. The faculty obviously was interviewed by the staff, by our district office staff. What we got from the faculty, from not every single person, because we didn't survey every person, was that they were already involved. They were ready to go. And I would say that the faculties get it. They understand that it's not going to be, they're not going to get an iPad in every kid's hand and everything's going to be perfect the following day. They know that there's going to be problems, so but these are teachers that are problem solvers and they're going to look for ways to make it work. As I stated earlier, I already got a lot of interest from parents throughout our community about doing it, and many, including I received an email today from a parent from one of your 4 schools asking, I thought, when will the iPads arrive? So, the parents haven't even been told. This is the first public statement that these are the schools that are going to be involved in it, but there's that much interest. And when you ask the kids, they say, let's go. What's the holdup? So, I asked Todd to talk a little bit about the network analysis, since that's clearly something he has more expertise than I do.
So what we've been done is, I'm just going to go over, and you guys know a lot of this because I've been updating you over the years, but over the year.
Does it feel like years?
Yeah. Feels like years, yes. We've done a lot of work on the network. The most important thing we've done is increased our bandwidth at all our sites, which is going to be really important for the coming Common Core and the Smarter Balanced tests that are all going to have to be taken at the same time. We've replaced all of our network switches. We basically have a brand new infrastructure. There are issues that we still are discovering here and there that are, as we come across them, makes the network run even better. So we're really happy right now where the network is. And the other thing that's key to all of this is that we plan for redundancy. So if systems go down at a school site, they're designed to fail over to the district, so we'll have no downtime. Nothing is more frustrating to a teacher than to plan a really cool lesson and only to be stopped or hampered by the technology. So that's my network analysis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rickman. So, yeah, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Hearn?
Can you do the second bullet point, 15,000 users using 2.5 devices simultaneously?
Yes.
What does that mean?
So what that means is that when we built capacity on the network, we looked at every student. We anticipated every student would have at least 2.5 devices connected to the network at the same time. So, for instance, I walk on campus, my phone automatically connects to the network. I might then throw open my laptop, which is connected to the network, or I might, then start up my iPad and have music streaming. So we planned for about 2.5 devices per person on the network. That's what we planned for.
You're planning for it, or you've planned for it, or it's happening?
That's how we built the system out.
Is it working?
Yes.
Not perfect, though.
It's not perfect. We've had a couple issues here and there. We discovered that when the switches were initially installed, that there were configurations that were wrong from the beginning that we're just learning about now. So it's one of those things where I don't know that it's broken until I know that it's broken. And so we're fixing things as we go. But yes, the network has been more stable and speedier than it's been in a long, long time. Yeah. Other questions?
Okay. Thank you, Todd. On to the budget. This is the best part.
This is really the best part? Okay. Well, the budget is, first of all, of the 4 pilot schools, so for this school year, we're looking at bringing the one-to-one program to grades 3 through 6, and then 11th grade at La Cuesta. Budget is anywhere from $0 to the district to $660,000. And so what does that mean? It means,
Please.
Mrs. Parker says, what does that mean? Yes. That means that if we go from completely family-purchased iPads, or iPads or tablets, whatever form that takes, if the families purchase their own, it will be $0 to the district. $660,000 is if the district purchases the tablets and the families don't purchase any. And then, of course, in between there is a blended model. District funds that will be used will be the new Common Core State Standards implementation funds. So as we look at the rollout going into next year.
Can we go back, Mr. Heron?
A question on the implementation fund.
Sure.
Remind me, how much do we have in implementation funds?
We believe we have about $2.5 million, and we're going to bring forward a plan on how we would. I've just received input from all the principals about their thoughts in relationship to that. We'll bring forward a plan to the board on it'll be more of a proportional plan, how we would spend the revenue, and we have to spend it over the next 2 years.
And so what percentage is $660,000 this year of those funds?
About 25%.
For 4 schools.
Correct. Yes. All right, next slide.
So looking on into the next school year and the continued rollout of the one-to-one project, we would be expanding to 2 more high schools, 2 junior highs, and an additional elementary school. The rollout would go from grades 3 through 7, and then at the high schools, it would be grade 9. So at the junior highs, it would be grade 7, the high school, grade 9. And you can see that the cost to the district would be anywhere from $0 to $1 million for just the next rollout phase. And then continuing the original 4 schools, including the new 3rd graders and 11th graders, anywhere from $0 to $280,000. So the total, as you can see there, adding the next 2. So about up to $1.3 million, or no dollars. And then on to the next year, which is, I should go back and say, year 2014-15 is the first year of Smarter Balanced Assessments. It's an important note. 2015-16, expanding to 5 more schools, and then you can see the dollar amounts there, the continued budget, depending on, and it just comes down to, do we go with completely family-owned, completely district purchased, or some blended model of that. Questions on those?
I hate to keep-
Mr. Herron?
Where does that 2.9 million come from?
There is no funding source identified to anything beyond the pilot year.
Thank you.
So then we just continue on into 2016-17, and I believe that brings us to that's the final year of the rollout.
Can you go to the next slide? Yeah.
Okay. Is this still my slide, or is this your slide? This is still mine? Okay. We didn't have a test run beforehand. So ongoing, potential ongoing costs would be, because we're starting at grade 3, all entering 3rd graders, again, it can be anywhere up to $400,000, but we will be putting the tablet into the hand of every 3rd grader in the district, and then any entering 7th graders, and then of course our high school students. So we're really looking at, we'll have to fill the gaps with students who enter our district, and for example, the entering 7th graders, that's going to be students coming from Goleta Union and entering our district who perhaps were not involved in a one-to-one situation. So we do have potential ongoing costs depending on the system that we choose for payment.
So the expectation is that you give a computer to a 3rd grader, and it's going to last them through 12th grade? Do they ever, once you give it to the 3rd grader, ongoing?
Right.
No.
No.
We also have all entering 7th graders.
Right.
Yeah, but she described that as from other districts.
No, the model is built on a student would have it grades 3 through 6, would get it another probably iteration of it in 7th
Okay.
grade.
Right.
And that would be probably what they would take through 12th grade.
That's the,
We just don't know how many high school kids are going to need them. It's kind of hard to tell.
We all gone by then.
Yeah, it could be something completely, who knows?
yeah, it could all be
Yeah, that's
Google-
why a
Google
lot of
Glasses.
this, I mean, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the iPad did not exist. So the technology, the idea is really about one-to-one. That's why it's not a device initiative.
So looking at payment, purchase, and possession, we're looking at a blended model. The idea if a child has one already that they use, if it meets the specs of all the other ones within the device system, as well as interesting as leasing and purchase options and what that looks like and how that helps families. Talking about family surveys, we did a small survey by a small cohort group at Franklin, and it was easy to say that our families were very excited, especially because having that lease purchase option, some of our families expressed that it was maybe one of the only ways that they were able to make sure that their student was able to have a device at home and being able to use it as an educational device. And they were very excited about it. And just a little side note, it was one of the parents that we kind of surveyed came up to me the other day and said, would they be here by Christmas? Because I'm going to wrap it in a box. And so, I mean, that gives you an understanding of how they're want to be dedicated to their child's education, but yet they definitely want to use it and are willing to do what they can, especially looking at a lease option. The payments would be enough that they could afford every month, but it's, you know, a big hit for any family to purchase one all at once. A school device compared to one that can be taken back and forth, the families definitely see it as something that they can dedicate some of their finances to in order to make sure that it works for their kids and it can go back and forth and become part of their backpack as a school book is today.
Thank you. So this would be you don't need to get up, Todd. This is the specification that we would put in the survey for if parents wanted to bring their own device or if a student already had it. iPad 4 with Retina display, 16 gig of storage, and Wi-Fi compatible.
This would be the minimum requirement.
Right. So here's what the lease purchase plan would look like, the proposed lease purchase plan. It's pretty self-explanatory, 36 monthly payments at about $20 per monthly payment. So families that, as Ms. Kilgore just described, this is probably what they would be interested in doing. Device management, security, and acceptable use, Mr. Rickman?
So we would obviously have to look and revamp our acceptable use policy, but maybe more importantly, we would have to move to a model where we used mobile device management. And I'm not sure if I've talked about it to the board before, but mobile device management allows us as a school district to manage the devices over the air, which is a requirement actually of Smarter Balance. We have to be able to put the devices into single app mode for testing. We want to be able to push apps out to the devices over the air. So we need to be able to manage them over the air. The other advantage of a mobile device management system is just classroom management for teachers. A teacher can have a class of students walk in with a device and lock all the devices down so they can't be used until the teacher wants them to use them. So that's one of the things we would do with mobile device management.
Thank you.
I had a question.
Ms. Edelson?
On the insurance, what does that cover? If the child dropped it in water, what wear and tear versus mechanical problems that are...
So we plan for two eventualities, I'll just say that. The first is the AppleCare Plus. AppleCare Plus is offered by Apple. You can fling it in a swimming pool, and for a $49 deductible, they replace it up to 2 times during the life of the AppleCare Plus, and that's 3 years. Then this is for us to, the insurance estimate, we're going to collect money to cover theft because AppleCare Plus doesn't cover theft, only breakage. And we know there will be some that get stolen, and so we want to build that in so we can replace them when that happens, because it will happen.
And after on the AppleCare Plus, after the 3 years, what happens?
After the 3 years, then we are no longer able to replace them. But the plan is that we will, as a district, become a certified, and I think I mentioned this when I did my presentation to the board, that we're going to become a certified Apple repair house where we'll be able to repair a lot of these. And if they're out of warranty at the time they're broken, we might have to dip into the self-insurance to repair them.
This model is one that's being used around the state right now at other districts, so we're not inventing it.
On the management program.
Your microphone.
The management program.
Yes, sir.
I've got to get back in the use of doing this, you know? Yeah, being away for a month, it makes a difference. Is that, have you used that? Is it in use now with somebody?
Yes, there are many companies in this space that have been doing it for a long time. The one that we have settled on is a company called AirWatch. You can look them up. There's Jamf, there's Absolute, there's a whole variety of them. The one that, the absolute must for our district is, though, when I was investigating them, is the ability of teachers to control the iPads in their classroom. AirWatch is the only company that offers that. The ability for an administrator at high level to select groups, put students in groups, and then put teachers in charge of those groups. So all the other systems require an administrator to manage that, and we really wanted teachers to be able to do that. It's really important for teachers to be able to control the devices.
And that would control my personal iPad on campus?
When you're on our campus, yes. When you walk off of our campus, we have no control over your iPad.
So it just automatically shifts?
It's called geofencing. So it knows when it's on campus, it knows when it's part of our network. We take control over it, and then when you're at home, it's yours.
And to manage this whole program?
From a website.
Is that going to take more staff?
No.
Is there any cost?
Yes.
In the estimates, is there any cost for technology overhead, your staff?
We had initially, do you want to speak to the technology overhead?
Yeah. We'll have a discussion as we move forward on reorganizing IT. It's really clear that the way that school, and I shared this with the staff at about 3:30 today, it's really clear as we move forward that the way in which school districts have layered on technology may have been effective in the situation where there was 1 or 2 devices per room, usually controlled by an adult. But moving into an environment where there will be devices in the hands of thousands of kids is going to require us to look at how we staff, how we manage technology. And I don't mean, it doesn't necessarily translate to more people, but what it translates to is what do the people we have, what are they doing? While you're away, and I will share this with you, it's not appropriate to discuss at this time. The IT reorganization did not go forward.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Originally, you talked about 2.5 devices, the system for 2.5 devices. Will I be able to use my iPad, my iPhone, my netbook, my Chromebook? Can I still use all those things on campus?
Absolutely.
So the student can, you said the minimum was the iPad 4, but is...
For this pilot, yes.
But in the future, are we looking at all devices? I mean, making it, are we going to be...
Well, that would be part of having to have a pretty detailed, or not with the board, but with staff, conversation about the infrastructure for technology support, because multiple platforms, multiple devices means multiple issues.
Yeah, that's what concerns me. Is it?
And also instruction. Instructing, in a classroom where there's multiple devices.
So one of the issues is going to be very soon for us, and in fact, we've asked every school to develop a plan on how they're going to ensure, just in this school year, every single student has the opportunity to learn and work on the device that will be assessed on. Because at any moment, and I hope it's at any moment, and it's not like some are predicting sometime at the end of the calendar year, the United States Department of Education and the California Department of Education will come to an agreement about who gets tested on what, with what assessment device for spring of 2014. But we have to anticipate that if pilots are available, we'll engage in them, and regardless, in 2015, every 3rd through 8th grade student and 11th grade student will be assessed utilizing technology. And so we need to get kids using technology, accessing technology, writing with it, solving problems with it, so that when they come to take the assessment, it's not the first time that they, or the second time, or even the third time that they've had an opportunity to interact with it. It's a familiar, comfortable place for them to go, to learn, and to communicate what they have learned.
I think Dr. Ross has a couple questions.
Just a couple of things. I think that, you know, I'm a lover of technology, too much so, you know. I have, you know, a lot of devices and too many things that I play with all the time. And one thing that I do think about in terms of the comments that were made earlier about being able to take, or a student being able to take their iPad, if it's an iPad, and taking it home, is having that ability and making sure we have that ability, because the learning doesn't stop at the classroom, and it continues in the home. And I think that's something that I would want us to continue to consider, and how are we going to do that with some of the kids not being able to do that, if they're going to be, you know, not have the ability to pay for something. That's going to be a huge question in my book.
I can assure you
every
that
student will take them home.
Yeah, we've already come to that decision.
Whether they are part of a purchase plan or not, every student will take the device home.
Because we agree, it's 24/7.
Yeah.
That's good.
And you won't be able to tell the difference between every student will have one and they will all take them home. That's just critical.
I think Ms. Alzina suggested all of the iPads have pink covers.
The other question, too, as I relate to all of this, and I think it's getting better. You know, the announcement the other day that Google is going to have Quick Office available, which is great, because you can, you know, play with it, and then it's stored to Google Drive. And I know that a lot of students are using Google Drive in the school district, so that's great. But that's my other question when it relates to this. This is a wonderful product to consume information. It's not the best product to produce information. And we can all agree that this does not compare to a PC, a personal computer. It is not the same thing. It is not the same device. We look at this device and we say it's a great product for lots of different things, but this does not have a file system. It's getting better because everyone has access to the cloud, and that's another question, an ongoing question, that even if we have the ability to have children take this home with them, will they have the ability to have access to a wireless network in their own home? Will they have that ongoing ability to have that in a reliable way that's not going to be taken away the next day, and they could still produce something? So it's another layer on top of that.
That's the great thing about that device, is that you can, especially if we go to the iTunes U model, you can download everything you need as a student at home, take it, do all of your work. I mean, at school, take it home without internet access and do all of your work. Yeah.
I hope that that's the case, and we don't find ourselves asking that question again, or I don't find myself asking that question.
No, this is all stuff that we are actually doing at some of our sites already, and that our teachers are engaged in already.
Yeah. And the other ongoing question is training support for teachers.
We're about to get to that.
All right.
So I don't think we've finished with the slides, so I think that the slides are still moving forward, so, yeah. Go ahead, Ms.
Yes. So here we go, training.
Again, I would like to just say, you know, what Dr. Cash said earlier is about that this is about students and about student engagement and about supporting student learning. And right now, we're on the next slide here. Here we go. And we've already seen what it has done for teachers with student learning, and how we've seen that this summer in June. You know, we had the PD, and we saw teachers creating iTunes U courses, and it has transformed over the summer how teachers instruct. And I'll just give you an example. As I've met with kindergarten teachers, and I lead the kindergarten council, and meeting with a group of teachers that were committed through the summer and creating thematic units around the next generation science standards, around the English language arts standards, social studies standards, including the new pedagogy and math. So creating thematic approach to learning, we were able to create 8 iTunes U units. So every unit in English language arts in the thematic realm has a complete, has all the resources that teachers and students need at their fingertips. So it's like Pinterest and Facebook and a file system built inside YouTube. And I then was inspired by the teachers to do that for my school site, because I needed a file system that they could immediately click online so they could have all the resources available to them at their fingertips wherever that they are at. So currently there's over 60 files. I have currently over 250 documents in my iTunes U course, and that we just started the school year. So think about what it's doing for teachers, and now transfer that into students. And so with that is the technology that the professional development courses that the County Office of Education offers for our teachers. But we also said, you know, what can we do inside? We have great leaders in our school district, our teacher leaders. What is it that they need? So we asked our tech integrators at all of our school sites. We asked the principals. We asked our current teachers, what is it that you need, but what is it that teachers at every level need? And so from that and from their feedback, we created a 3-tier system, and that's what that you have in their professional development iPad series. So the first tier is a beginner series for the teacher that's still a little hesitant and nervous about the iPad, that's still, okay, I have my iTunes U course downloaded on my iPad, but I don't really know how to create my own course. And then the second tier is more of an intermediate course for teachers. And then the third tier is an advanced course. And what teachers are doing right now is transforming students' lives. And that at the 12th class right there is the 3D printing. We just currently purchased a 3D printer at Adams School, and what the students are doing in 6th grade, the level of excitement is revolutionary. The creativity that's happening, the math that is happening, the dimensions. Okay, pull it out of my pocket. So they created these bracelets with their 3D printer. They figured out it costs $2. It's
pretty cool.
Oh, are you going to buy one? I love it. Okay, Ed. They cost $2 to make, they figured it out. And so for Science Camp, you know, that's one of the items that they're selling with a $2 profit. Oh, and we're keeping the change. I love it. And we also have combs. They made combs as well. Dr. Jody, would you like a comb? You can have it.
There's a tremendous YouTube video that I would highly recommend. I think, is it Rob Cooper?
Mr. Cooper.
Who is essentially standing back, and he has a student, and the student assembles the 3D printer right in front of your eyes on the YouTube video. It's fantastic.
It's amazing. And the students are just... The level, you walk, I challenge you to come into the classroom and just walk in the classroom and see the level of excitement, the buzz in the air, the excitement for math. I mean, I've never seen so many kids excited about math and learning. They now have a connection of why you need to know that formula, why radius is important, why diameter is important. So the professional development is key. And the parents involved, and currently, our parent group, and Ann's going to talk about that, but I know I can just speak, our PTA is just hungry to teach our parents and to have professional development evenings for parents on how to support the iPad at home as well. So Ann's got some great ideas.
So everybody keeps stealing my things. Thanks, Amy. So the parents and guardians are obviously a huge piece of this big picture, because the last thing we want to do is create more of that digital divide, which is seen daily in my house, where I have to ask my 7-year-old constantly, how do you do that? And it was my 14-year-old that came running in the house, iOS 7 is available, iOS 7 is available, and we had to hand her all our devices. Okay, update them. Now show me how to do it, because it doesn't look the same. That digital divide isn't just with the students because of socioeconomic status, it's also because between parents and guardians and the students. So a big piece of this is bringing in the parents and guardians and helping to support them in their foray into the technology world. And that's offering parent programs, much like the teacher programs, where parents can come into the school sites and learn how to use the device. And again, starting at basic levels, how to turn it on, how to turn it off, how to connect to the internet, how to open an app, how to close an app, to helping to create skills for the parents to use in their lives. And we're looking at a few different models of how to do that. Todd has been working with Padres Unidos about developing something. I've been in contact with Santa Barbara City College in their parent education program. I'm looking for content currently on the Lifelong Learning Center. I was directed towards them through the Director of Parent Education Program as also another means of bringing in technology instructors to the school sites and offering evening classes in both English and Spanish about how parents can interact with a device.
And then lastly, the student piece. And with the student is setting a common expectations and standards and goals. For example, we piloted a computer programming program with the iPad, and we taught our students studying in 3rd grade how to create a game and how to computer program with the iPad. And so that's something that we are then all talking about, okay, let's do that together. Let's not just make that one school has it, all schools are doing that. And so really calibrating that level of excellence at every school, and because every school has great ideas, and so that we're all on the same page, so that every student has the same opportunity no matter what school that they're at.
Great, thank you. That was good. Next steps for us, what we'd like to is administer the survey for implementation, that is the survey of parents. And it's that 3-step process of, do you want to bring your own device? Do you want the option of leasing, purchasing, or would you like us to provide it? We'd like to continue we will continue the teacher trainings, want to schedule parent meetings, and develop an evaluation tool and create the timeline for reporting back to the board and the community. One of the things that I'm most concerned about is that if we don't intentionally get involved in a one-to-one educational initiative like this, very, very soon we will have a huge gulf between our schools who have parents of means and our Title I schools. And it will be extraordinarily difficult to bridge that gulf, because I have many, many parents, and you may have been contacted by some yourself, at some of our schools who want this to begin immediately. And they wanted it to begin a year ago. I had parents from a couple of schools. And I was saying we need to involve all the teachers, we need to do it systematically so teachers are on board and comfortable with the implementation in the classroom. We just can't throw in 30 iPads in a classroom and expect things to change. So that's our presentation. Questions?
Thank you. Mr. Herron, then Dr. Buss.
I'm just curious, what would be a reason where the parent would not want the school's device?
It would be their own.
But they can have ours for 3 years, or 3rd, 4th, 5th, 4 years.
Right.
And by the end of those 4 years, the device is obsolete. And so they've paid for something that they didn't have to pay for.
Can I comment on that, just with my experience with my AVID class? We offered to give the iPads to the students for the time they were there, or let them do this $20 payment with my AVID class, and all but one student wanted to buy the device, just because they didn't have an opportunity to have something like that. I think I've told the story before, the day the iPads arrived, that kids are opening them crying. I mean, it was just a very, very special day. I'll never forget it. Sean Carey was in the room with me. It was very emotional. But just the ability to own something, I think pride in ownership is a reason why a lot of families will do it. Apple had shared with us that school districts using this model, what they find very interesting is that a lot of the more well-to-do families choose to not purchase them, where the other, more of our at-risk, not at-risk, or more of our socioeconomic, lower socioeconomic students, I am having a hard time speaking tonight, I'm sorry, buy them because this is an opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise have. So for me, this is, I want to echo what Dr. Cash said. For me, this is a civil rights issue in a lot of ways. We don't have kids that have access to this at home, and we need to find a way to be able to provide that for them.
But did I hear you say that the well-to-do families will use the school iPad?
Yeah, they generally do, according to Apple.
That just seems counterproductive to me. I mean, that just seems, why do we want to build in that kind of a situation?
What do you mean?
Where the well-to-do take a free one, and yet the economic disadvantaged pay for one.
To further my statement, the other thing that Apple says is that their experience at other sites is that that's generally the initial response of parents, and after a couple weeks, the kids come home and say, you know what, this is a great deal, we should just get this, and so they do. So at a lot of school sites, Apple has done this with, they have about 80% participation.
We obviously budgeted for 0.
Yeah, and I can't see anything else happening than that. So I'll be pleasantly surprised, hopefully. I just don't understand why it would happen.
Dr. Buss?
Just a couple of quick comments. One is